Okay, you're ready to go.
Thanks, Kyle. Well, good evening and welcome, everyone. It's fun to see some familiar faces. Ajay, nice to see you. Our very own JM and Deviani, good to see you guys. Dr. Hoadley, good to see you. Jamiel, it's been a while. It's nice to see you again. Jamiel played basketball with my son for a number of years. And Steven's got his proud COSI hat on. Kofi, I think we met at the demonstration there in the historic district a couple months back. That wasn't you.
No, that was not me. But we met back at Martin Luther King Sunday Supper.
Okay, I knew we had met. I guess I didn't place where. And Vincent, it's nice to see you. And then there's a host of new faces of people that I don't yet know. So it is lovely to have all of you join us. And thank you for your time this evening. This and throughout this process. So we look forward to it. It's obviously tonight is the first meeting of Dublin City Council's Community Task Force, and I'd like to start by thanking you for your time and your willingness to engage in what we hope are difficult and productive conversations, because I don't know that we will get anywhere without difficult and productive conversations. So I appreciate your willingness to engage in those. That is an uncommon trait, and we are grateful for you. Obviously, due to COVID, we cannot all be in the same room together right now. Hopefully, one day in the near future that will change, and we will be able to meet in person. But we did not want to delay this opportunity to begin these conversations until that time. So we are going to use the tools available to us to the best of our ability, and are hopeful that good things will come of that. What you are doing has been of utmost importance to your city, to Dublin City Council, to our city manager, to our city staff. So this is one of the most important things going on in our community right now, and we are so glad that you are participating in that. As you know, probably, that your existence as a task force came to be through a resolution 41-20. And the resolution, Dana is going to outline it for you, I believe, later, but it talks about some of the goals that we as council have out of this task force. And those goals are certainly important, but I don't think they're quite as important as your goals out of this task force. These are the things that we thought might come of it, but we may end up in a very different place than where we anticipated that we would, and that's okay, because we want to be led to the place that is right, not just to the place that we thought we were going. And so I want you to feel that latitude. I want you to feel that the length of that rope, and feel free to explore those things and come back to us with recommendations as you see fit. So tonight's goal is for the discussion of resolution 41-20. It is for an opportunity for you all to get to know one another a little bit. And I know how difficult that is on Zoom. So we're going to do our best and give ourselves grace, because we need it in this time and in this space. We're going to ask that you brainstorm ideas for public engagement and how we can continue this broad community conversation and hear all voices, because all voices are important. We hope that you have suggestions for us, and that we hope that you have some input on how you'd like to see us reach those goals. And then we would like to know, as Stephen, I saw the email thread, Stephen added what our goals were, and then there were some others that chimed in and echoed those, and what the goals and outcomes, most importantly. You know, if we go through all of this exercise and we don't have a measurable outcome, maybe we weren't as successful as we could have been. Public comment is welcome, and we have identified a portion of that for the agenda this evening. And then you will discuss the role of a chair and a vice chair that you will select, and responsibilities, and how that process will be determined. And last, to discuss the next steps and meeting dates for you all to come with your calendars and have availability. So that's a lot for one night. So don't feel overwhelmed. These Zoom meetings, I know we had one last night that ran just a little over 3 hours, I think, Dana. And I tell you, at the end of them, it's very exhausting. I don't know why Zoom meetings are more tiresome than in-person meetings, but I do feel that they are. So don't feel overwhelmed. We don't, we didn't get in this situation today, and we're not going to get out of it today, right? So what's the important thing is that we start to take measured steps for a more perfect union. That is the goal, from my perspective. And I want you to know that that there were a lot of people that wanted to serve on this commission, and you all were selected for various reasons. And so we have a tremendous amount of faith in you and belief in you. And it's not an accident that you are here, and it's very intentional. And we are grateful for your presence. All of City Council is. I happen to be serving as the mayor, but I'm one of 7 on your Dublin City Council, and all of them would echo the same words, I believe, that I am sharing with you this evening. This is very important to everyone. So at this time, I think Dana is going to call roll, and he will refer to the resolution. And I will stay for a bit, but I want you to know this, is I'm leaving this meeting because this community hears my voice a lot. And they hear City Council voices a lot. And what we want from you all is to hear your voice. And so I want to step away after we do roll call and really provide a space for you all to have the freedom to speak freely and to have a robust, honest, and hopefully difficult conversation and have the privacy that as best we can give it in these times to do that. So Dana, if you want to go forward with roll call.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. And I'll welcome everyone here in a second myself. But before we do that, I'm actually going to hand over to Ann Clark, she is Clerk of Counsel, and she's here supporting us tonight, which I greatly appreciate. So Ann, if you'll please call the roll, I appreciate that. And as Ann calls the roll, just signify by saying here.
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Adams.
Here.
Mr. I'm sorry,
Amponsa.
Impanza.
I'm here.
Ms. Villaconte.
Here.
Ms. Franklin.
Here.
Dr. Hoadley.
Here.
Ms. Maria.
Here.
Ms. Mercado.
Here.
Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Dr. Satya Priya.
Here.
Mr. Shoji.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Shafawara.
Here.
Mr. Wang.
Here.
Mr. White.
Here. Present.
And I'm not sure, has Mr. Jordan joined us yet? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, great. Thank you. I think that's everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Again, thank you, Mayor, for the introduction. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being able to be here with us this evening and tee this up. I want to say also on behalf of city staff and just chime in and say just how what a pleasure it is to have you all here with us. What a pleasure it was to get to know all of you, each and every one of you on the phone, because I got the great work of getting to get to know all of you and making a recommendation to City Council, and it was just a real privilege to have that opportunity. And as the mayor mentioned, yes, there are quite a few other people who expressed an interest to be a part of this, but for all those reasons that you expressed to me, I felt very comfortable in making a recommendation to City Council, and I thank them for their support. It is a great challenge before us to take on this role, and I think I really am excited and look forward to the great things that you're going to do for the community in this role. And I'm going to go over that with you here in a minute. Before I do that, though, I do want to introduce a couple staff members that I have with us. I did introduce Ann. Ann's Clerk of Counsel. We'll have support from Clerk of Counsel's office in doing these meetings. I'm going to kind of function as your MC tonight / I'll call it chair for lack of a better word, just to move you through the agenda. and that's going to be my only role tonight. And I'll go over that more here in a second. I also have with me J.M. Rayburn. J.M. is a planner in our Division of Planning. J.M. is also has taken up a very special role for us, which I'm very appreciative of. And J.M. has volunteered to be one of our LGBTQ plus liaisons for the community. So that community is represented here with J.M.'s role. And J.M., I can't thank you enough for taking that on. I'm also pleased to introduce Deviani Piernick. Deviani is a senior planner in our Division of Planning. And Deviani chimed in very early on as we were talking about this and giving me some suggestions and ideas. And I said, well, what you get for doing that is you get to help us out. So I'm very, very pleased that Deviani is willing to help us out. You see Shirley Blaine on there. Shirley is with our Communications and Public Information Office, and Shirley is here lending some support. And as we get to that part of the agenda, because we are live streaming, and if residents are watching and they want to give some public comment, we're going to do that tonight at a specific point in the agenda. So Shirley is going to monitor for those comments and then bring those forward when we get to that part of the agenda. So with that, I'm going to just very quickly cover some high points of Resolution 4120. And some of you have heard this spiel before. You had to hear it when I gave you a call. So I'm just going to touch on some high points here. This is sort of the charge of this task force. Now, you may ask yourself, why do we have a task force? Remember, we're in the business, as I call it, and I remind our staff all the time, we're in the business of democracy. And this is about our community democracy. And you are going to play a critical role in that. We have boards, commissions, committees, obviously elected officials that help us do that. And boards, commission, committees are appointees of city council. Now, we do other things like advisory committees as well, in addition to those boards, commission, committees that are set forth by our city charter. Task forces are a word that we use to describe an advisory type committee that frankly has a start point and an end point. And a lot of times the reason we have task forces is because we have a very important topic that we want to focus on and get sort of rapid focus on and rapid response and recommendation back to city council. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So you're a task force pulled together to work very specifically on the particular issues of both Resolution 3720 and Resolution 4120. And then, of course, your recommendations can result in a lot of different things. And the fun part of this is to see what you all come up with. And it's yours to do and to own. So with that, and we'll get to introductions in a little bit more detail here in a minute, but I just wanted to highlight Resolution 4120. So you might recall that when I spoke to each and every one of you, I think I talked about sort of a three-legged stool, if you remember that. One was this community task force. The other was the Chiefs Advisory Committee, which actually the chief has formed and council has made their appointments to that. In fact, I want to thank Esau for agreeing to serve on both this committee, this task force, as well as the Chiefs Advisory Committee. So Esau Shoji is going to be sort of your liaison over to the police, to the Chiefs Advisory Committee as well. So thank you, Esau, for doing that. So that's two legs of the stool. The third leg of the stool is a general public engagement process, which I want to pick your brain up on here this evening, about a general engagement process of dialogue and discussion that's out there for the general public to participate in, to try to get feedback and input from the larger community as a whole, and then how that might inform then through that process, whatever those ideas might be, to bring ideas and so forth back that this task force might be able to sort of synthesize or talk about, as well as of course, your own ideas that you may have as individuals and as members of this task force. So that's sort of the big picture of Resolution 4120 and as well as Resolution 3720. So these two resolutions are, in effect, council actions that set all of this in motion. Resolution 3720 was really their statement about what's going on in the environment and the fact that they wanted to take a position on this and take action. So those three things that I talked about are really what that's about. Resolution 4120 is the sort of enacting legislation or companion legislation that followed that put this task force and the Chiefs Advisory Committee into motion. So I think I sent out 4120 to all of you, and it does talk about the duties and functions of the task force. So your job is, I'm not going to reread all this to you, but to advise on matters of social justice and promote opportunities to foster understanding, inclusion, positive relationships, and a strong sense of community among all community members. I think that's probably one of the most important statements in here. Obviously, we want to defeat social injustice, bias, bigotry, racism within our community. Recommend long-term goals and methods by which to achieve those goals. And I appreciate, as the mayor mentioned, that Stephen had mentioned, well, gee, how are we going to measure those as well? So something we want to be cognizant of, and those are inherent to that as you determine what those are. We want to invite, engage, and listen to the concerns and issues and ideas of the community and our diverse community. So you can also be a sounding board for that. So while we may have these other engagements, we certainly want the public to use this as a venue to come forward and share their information and ideas and thoughts. We do want to partner with other partners. So thank you, Dr. Hoadley, for being on with us and really accentuating Dublin City Schools as part of this. We have other community partners as well, which may include other agencies that we may want to reach out to, other service agencies, business. We might engage the like Hilliard City Schools as well, Jonathan Alder Schools, and other community partners in this process. So feel free if you have thoughts and ideas about who some of those partners might be, that we would want to invite them and be a part of the discussion as well. We want to the maximum extent possible, have dialogue and effort among all these partners, participate in educational informational efforts as members, as city staff, as a community as a whole. So certainly if there are ideas and suggestions you have about how to educate ourselves as a task force or the community at large, we want you to bring those forward and we'll tackle those and figure out how to make those part of the process. Because educating ourselves is obviously part of this whole thing. Then we would review the findings of and advise council and staff, being me, on a self-assessment that we are conducting relative to our organization. I actually sent to you a memo that, and we're not going to dwell on that too much tonight, but I wanted to get that into your hands. Resolution 3720 asked that the staff do sort of a self-assessment. My assistant city manager and Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer Homer Rogers put that together, and I've shared that with you prior to this meeting, just so you can have some background about the city as an organization and the kinds of things that we're working on. So I look forward to you being a sounding board for me as city manager, and to take your advice and counsel relative to the organization, which is the City of Dublin, and our staff and how we conduct business and training and so forth. Obviously, when it comes to public safety and public services that are transparent, accountable, and responsive to everyone who lives in the community, we want to make sure that the way we serve the community is appropriate and serving everyone. So we'll look forward to your input and feedback on that. And of course, you know, sort of the catch-all is just identifying key issues that require other exploration and discussion that are of that may not have been addressed here, but you know, may come forward. So that's really the other key thing. And I want to thank a gentleman who's been working with us, and some of you know Steve Francis, who is a longtime community member here. Steve actually was very helpful with me in a lot of our process so far. And one of the things he certainly lifted up, and I couldn't agree with him more, is to the extent that we come up with the things that you recommend or want to do, we need to resource that, and that will require some resources. So, you know, these things are only as good as words on paper and actions we want to take, but, you know, without the resources to support and execute on that, they may not result in much. So we need to make sure that we're aligning resources behind any recommended efforts. So that is the charge of the task force. Just as an overview, please feel free to spend some time with those two resolutions. And if you have any questions or thoughts about that, let me know. And we can get into a little bit more later about the chair, vice chair. We have that on the agenda, which I'll talk about later on. So with that, my goal tonight is to not talk a lot. And I know that's hard to believe given the first few minutes of this meeting. So I want you all to be doing the talking. That's what this is about. So we're going to start that process with all of you doing an introduction. So I think what we'll do is now how you introduce yourself. I don't want to determine that, but you can maybe, how long you've lived in Dublin, maybe a little bit about your background. I'll leave that up to you to do. A minute or so, a couple minutes each, just to do that. So you get familiar with one another, whatever you feel is appropriate in that. So with that, I'm going to be very innovative and go right down the list in alphabetical order. So if you don't mind, so Erica, that puts you right at the top. So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good evening, everyone. First of all, Dana and Chris, I am just honored to be a part of this task force. To me, it speaks volumes that the city of Dublin is making efforts to really put a solution in front of the community to bring all of us together as a united front in a positive manner. And I'm a very passionate person, and I have to sometimes remind myself that it's seek to understand first before you move forward with opinions. And so I'm looking forward to sharing ideas, having a very synergistic, collaborative experience, and a safe place, like you mentioned, Dana, that we're all here. We're just here to come together and try to make a positive difference, whatever that looks like. And don't be afraid to speak your idea. No idea is bad. We have to start somewhere. We have to come up with goals and solutions, which I know we'll all do. But I've always been someone who has not spoken freely for fear that I'm not saying the right thing. And I think we don't have time for that. We can say what we feel respectfully and, use this as a time to get creative and come with a solution. So I'm a mother of three. My girls are at Dublin schools. One is a senior at Jerome. Another is a middle schooler at Grizel. We've been in the Dublin area really for, I would say, 13 years total. We were here for 7 and then moved away and came back. So we love Dublin. We had to come back. But anyways, thank you, everyone. I'm very excited to be a part of this. And I hope that what I bring to the table is valuable to all of you.
That's great. Thank you, Erica. We really appreciate that. Kofi, you're next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kofi Amponsa. I grew up in Dublin, elementary, all the way up until graduation. I'm currently a student at the University of Cincinnati studying biology. I am a student intern with the sports medicine here at UC. The reason I wanted to be part of the task force is because I feel Dublin has a lot to address, and I'm glad I can be a voice and help with this change that's coming. Thank you.
That's great, Kofi. We really appreciate it. And we always appreciate the leadership that you provided here in Dublin with the various things that you were involved in, the Martin Luther King Supper and so forth, that did so much in bringing people together in the community. So even though he's at UC, we're not letting him get away. So we're reaching out, and we're glad that he's very willing to participate. And I know what a tough schedule you have, and appreciate you taking the time to do it. Rama, we didn't get to say hi to you earlier. Rama, welcome. It's great to have you on.
Hey, thank you, Dana, for giving me this opportunity on the task force, first of all. My name is Rama Belakanti. I have been in Dublin for almost 11 years. I am a theoretical researcher by profession, but right now I'm on break for my kids. But I do have a couple of tutoring centers, which right now are closed because of COVID, as you all know. I think I would like to voice the voice of the community. I would like to be the voice of the community for whatever reason we are here for. And I think it is very good that Dublin is doing this. We have not seen a lot of people reaching out to the community for a dialogue on what's going on. And I'm very happy that I am part of it. So I hope I will make a difference. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure you will make a difference, Ram, and we appreciate you being a part of this very much. Denisha.
Hello, my name is Denisha Franklin. I have been working in Dublin since I moved to Columbus about 4 years ago. Originally from Cleveland, but don't hold that against me. So I've been here for a while, and the entire time I've been here, I've been focused primarily within the technology industry in several different ways. So one of the things that first piqued my interest really was diversity and inclusion within corporate America. So that is a place that I'm very passionate. That's where I focus a lot of my time, both in and outside of work. I think one thing that I'm really looking forward to and that I hope that we can do within this group is to be able to have conversations, and some of you have already alluded to it, but to be able to have conversations from a very honest place. I'm someone who, when it comes to these types of things, I like to just have upfront conversation. Someone said earlier, we don't have time to kind of beat around the bush and do that sort of thing. So I'm excited for that conversation. I know that there's a lot of really great people on this call as well. So I'm excited to get to know you all better. Just looking forward to the journey.
Great, thanks, Denisha. And I married a Clevelander, even though I'm from Cincinnati. So I'm all about Cleveland. So
yes,
because I married into it, right? So
you had no choice.
Hey, but Denisha cut herself a little bit. She is a leader in the tech community and a co-founder of Black Tech, which we're very proud to be associated with. And Denisha, it's a real privilege to have you a part of this process and really representing kind of the corporate world too, because working with Wendy's, correct? So great to have you on.
Thank you.
Dr. Hoadley, Todd.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. Dana, Mayor Grooms, thanks for including me in this. Great to see everyone. I know a lot of people on the call, and I look forward to getting to know the people that I don't know so well. 7 years ago, I also moved here from Cleveland, so we'll continue the Cleveland Love Fest a little bit there. But 22 years as a superintendent, and just the last, I'll be honest, the last 4 or 5 months have been really rough. And I'm not talking about the pandemic. This national conversation, and as a public school, we're part of the public, and our students are hurting. And back in June, we became aware of an Instagram site, Dear Dublin, which has over 220 posts. That led me to have some conversations with some of you on this call. And it's really important. The word conversation has been used a couple times. That's really long overdue. We need to have a conversation in Dublin as we continue to grow more diverse around making sure that Dublin is a place where everyone feels safe, everyone feels valued, everyone feels included. And so I'm honored to be a part of this process and really look forward also to the journey. Thanks everyone for allowing me to be a part of this.
Thanks, Todd. And we really appreciate the partnership with the schools and the support that the schools are providing this in general. And your presence here is certainly meaningful to that. Ron Jordan.
Thanks a lot, Dana. Hi guys, I'm Ron Jordan. I'm owner and operator of Headquarter Dublin and Jordan Hospitality Group. So Dana asked for me to be a part of this. I'm not a Dublin resident. I actually live in New Albany, but I am very much a part of the Dublin community with the restaurant that we got there. And I think I was honored to absolutely be a part of this so I can help lend a voice to some of the challenges I've faced in Dublin with many committees we had to go through in city council and things like that. Just owning a business here in Dublin and hopefully provide some insights and some things that I think would help other folks that are prospective business owners or are currently having any difficulties or even just want some advice or help here on this task force, as well as providing another voice to help aid some of the challenges and issues that we're dealing with today. So thank you again for inviting me here, Dana. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Ron. We're really proud to have Headquarter here. We'll be even more proud once you move to Dublin, but I'll work on that. So In fact, I just
That's going to be a tough one. It's a tough sell for the wife. So New Albany is treated as well so far.
yeah, that's a great. I was just emailing Joe Stefanoff over there today, so I'll give him a hard time about that. But thank you for agreeing to be a part of this. I really do appreciate it. Bridget.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bridget Marier, and I too want to thank you for signing me to this task force and the mayor. I look forward to working with all of you. I agree with everything that's been said about priorities. I think they're probably, from my perspective, I tend to tell folks I sort of live in the Dublin bubble, and that's good and bad. I want to work on making sure the bubble is a lot more inclusive. My kids grew up here in Dublin. 3 of them graduated from Jerome High School. They've been at Dublin schools from the beginning. My husband and I, Joseph Wisney, we own Roto, which is basically a local business in the Dublin area, designing interactive exhibits. And my partnership there, I've been primarily focused on human resources, and maybe I can bring something to the group in that regard. I also have been very involved with some philanthropic activities recently, particularly focused on both affordable housing and looking at lifestyle choices so that we can reduce the health impacts of lifestyle choices. And I'm thinking both of those things are relevant to this group, I hope. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Bridget, and thanks for being a part of this. And we certainly appreciate Roto's presence here in Dublin. It's a great company. I saw Stephen nodding his head, so the COSI guy is very aware of the great work that Roto does. Lynette.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lynette Mercado. I moved to Plain City, Jerome Township, 5 years ago from the city of Chicago. And while I was there, I served in different capacities as a city commissioner representing the Puerto Rican community, the Latino community. And when I moved here, I brought 4 children into the Dublin City Schools. At the time, it was Dear Ron, Grizel, and Jerome. As of right now, I've got 3. One is at DEP. Today was her first day. And when I looked at the demographics, we were not counted. There were less than 10 of us Latinos represented in the schools that I was now a part of. And it's been an interesting journey. I am grateful to Superintendent Dr. Hoadley and Chris Valentine when I sent them the Dear Dublin, Ohio page. It resonated with me. A lot of experiences that are shared and lived. And I'm grateful that the table has been made bigger so that we could sit around it and just be able to contribute and have this conversation that I think is important. Hispanics are now counted. There are more than 10 of us, and our community is growing and thriving. And just to be able to be at the table and have the dialogue, I think that Black and Brown folks in Dublin City Schools have something to contribute, and I'm grateful.
Thank you, Lynette. And the experience too that you bring from Chicago is just incredible as well. So appreciate that you will bring that to bear as well. So thank you for agreeing to be a part of this. Jamiel.
Hello. I want to say thank you, Mr. McDaniel, for allowing me to be on this task force, and also Dr. Hoadley for referring me. So yeah, my name is Jamiel Robinson. I'm a senior at Dublin Kaufman High School, and I plan to go to college studying either pre-med or health sciences. I'm not sure what college I want to go to yet, but I'm still deciding. My parents moved us here, me and my sisters here when I was about 5. So we've been here 11 to 12 years. And I went through Bailey cells, and now I'm in Dublin Kaufman. And yeah, so I just wanted to be a part of this and able to be a part of this so I could help make a difference. And just with everything going on recently in America, it's not, I wouldn't say everything that's happening outside of that is happening in Dublin, but there are definitely things that we can help fix in the Dublin area, and I'm glad to get started. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jamiel, for being a part of this. It shows great leadership, and we really appreciate it. I do, by the way, have the permission of council to make a total of 4 youth appointments. So I'm working on those other 3. I believe I have one of the other 3, and I've got a couple others several others actually, who have contacted us. So hopefully at your next meeting, we'll have those other 3 individuals, youth appointments as well. That's my goal. So Jamiel, thanks so much. You're going to bring a lot to this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Ajay, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you. How is everyone? I just want to say thank you to you, thank you to Dublin, thank you for making this task force possible, and thank you for everyone else for joining. For those who don't know me, my name is Ajay Satyapriya. I grew up here in Columbus. I left here as soon as I could when I was done with college, moved around Chicago, DC, New York, and I met a girl also from Cleveland. And when we had our family, she wanted to move back to Columbus, and we chose Dublin specifically. I love this place. I think it's growing. I think it's young. I think it's active. I think it's everything you want in a community. Great schools, great people. So there was no choice for us. We came back. We wanted to live in Dublin. I've been back about 10 years. I'm a physician here at both Dublin Hospital and Riverside. And I also opened my small business called Smile MD and put it in Dublin. So I'm excited for this task force and excited to work with all you people.
Well, Joe, know how busy you are with all of that, but thank you for taking the time to help us out and be a part of this. Greatly appreciated. My friend Esau, who I've known for quite a while. Esau.
Don't hold that against me, everyone. It is a privilege for me as well to be on this task force. I think I echo everybody as far as the excitement and the hope that we all have for the work that we're able to do together. I am I guess, a Taiwanese guy that grew up in Japan until the age of 13 and came to the States as an 8th grader as an immigrant. I imagine, like some of you in this task force, came to Central Ohio as a freshman in high school. My parents decided that first year in Hawaii just was not a true American experience. We wanted to go to the true America, and they decided to choose Hilliard, Ohio. So that's where I grew up. Don't hold that against me either. I did bleed blue and white for a long time. In fact, back then it was just Hilliard High School versus Dublin High School. So I have to admit, I have painted that Rock and Kaufman High School a few times with blue paint. Having said that, I failed to convince my wife to live in Hilliard. She wanted to be in Dublin. And that was 3 years ago that we moved to Dublin. And quite frankly, she was right. This is a place that we feel that we belong, that we feel welcomed. And this is a place that our children are thriving. And we're very thankful for that as well. We have a 7-year-old who just had her first day in school today at Indian Run. She was so happy to go and come back. And we have a 5-year-old who just can't wait to get on the school bus next year. My hope is that through this task force, I am somehow going to be able to give somebody a chance to stand at the same starting line that we all deserve. I feel that as an immigrant, I didn't get to where I am because I did something right. It was along the way, many people's help that allowed me to be here. Obviously, the country gave me the opportunity to get to where I am, but it's all because I got to stand at the start line at some point. And I know that there are many people who won't have that chance unless some of us help. And some of that is race related, ethnicity related. Some of that is more socioeconomic, perhaps. But my hope is that our work will allow as many people as possible to thrive and have the shot that they deserve in life here in the city of Dublin. And if we do it right, I think this is going to be an awesome place for not just us, but for the next generation of kids to live and love. So, thanks.
Lisa, thank you for your passion. I appreciate that a lot. And I know him well enough. He's going to be a hard worker with all this. So thank you for what you're going to do. I'm really looking forward to it. Selena?
Hello, I'm Silvina Smith. Thank you to Dana and Dr. Hodley for inviting me to belong to this task force. I really appreciate being part of this. I wanted to be part of something big like this to maybe make a change. I know things are changing and communities need to be heard. I work for Dublin City Schools. I used to live around the area of Dublin, and 5 years ago I moved away, kind of towards Dayton, so I'm not living in the Dublin district, but I miss it so much that I needed to come back and work in Dublin. So I work here for already 4 years, and mainly I've been working with the Hispanic Latino community since I came to this country 20 years ago. And knowing what they go through and the experiences that they need to live coming from other countries, and being always the connector or the aid to assist them with the system, and learning how to navigate what they need to do when they come to a country without language, without knowing what to do for their children, is what has made me want to belong to this task. Being able to be their voice, raise their concerns, working with parents like maybe Miss Mercado went through when she came to the district. We still have parents coming in and they don't know what to do, and they feel part of just a little group. If we can let them know that there is more parents going through the same experiences, and there's going to be people assisting them and working with them, that's what I try to do, let them know that they're not alone, and just being their voice. If I can raise their concerns, if I can let you guys know what they're living and experiencing, and be able to help them and bring resources to them a little bit easier than what they are getting, maybe we can make it better, and help as much as I can with whatever you need to assist the communities in the whole. That's my goal.
Well, that's an incredible goal, but you're doing a lot of that every day of your life, and I appreciate the great service that you're doing for folks who need that assistance. So, I mean, it was an amazing story to sit and have a conversation with her and hear the great work that you do. So it's going to be a wonderful perspective to this advisory committee, this task force. So thank you. Nancy, great to see you. Thanks for joining.
Oh yes, thank you everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. So my name is Nancy Shafawara. I was born and raised in Kenya, and about 3 years ago, I was flying back, and I thought, is it possible to love two countries so dearly? Because my heart is in Kenya and it is also in the US. And I think one of the things that I am learning is to move away from the single story narrative. And the reason why I say that is my husband is from Nigeria. And even as we're talking about equity and diversity, because we have the categories, we've put Blacks, we've put whites, we've put Hispanics, but there's so much diversity even within those groups. So I think my goal and my focus, even being a part of this group, and I think I told Dana, yes, I am Black, but I do not have an African-American experience. In fact, when I came to the US, I thought racism was over, and I thought that everything was a happy place. And, and then staying on is when your eyes begin to open about the different things that are occurring. But one of the things, as I tell my children, because my children are Americans, and this is what they know. And I remember the first time we were in elementary, they were in elementary, we went to Kenya, and they were not looking forward to going to Kenya. And that's because the single story narrative of, in fact, we're not even called Kenya, we're called Africa. is there's nothing there. And so we got there and they had so much fun. So then they came back to school in the elementary and they're sharing their stories. And everybody's like, no, you mean you have cities? You mean you have buildings? And I'm thinking we are in a district that prides itself in global awareness, yet we still have a single story narrative. Sure enough, there are parts that are like that, but that's not the whole picture. So just being part of this group also and seeing the diversity, because I think the more I stay on, the more I realize the less that I know, because I make this assumptions, even having married my husband who's from West Africa, it was a whole new culture that I had to learn. And just being able to see that, oh, just because somebody looks this way doesn't mean that that's the whole picture. So my contribution towards this group that I'd want to give is the voices, and just I'm glad that it's a part that is not only diverse in terms of ethnicity, but also age, because I always say in your life, you need to have three people. You need to have a person who's older than you that is mentoring you. You need to have your peer that you can bounce ideas, and you need to have somebody younger than you. And if your circle looks just like you, same age, same socioeconomics, you're missing out. So, and I think with Dublin, we really are just one social strata. The way it's set up in the US, you really cut out a big part of people. So I think what I would want, even as we're just going through, is how do we make sure that we interact with all those three groups of people, you know, those who don't look like us, those who don't make the money that we have, and those who are from different backgrounds.
Thank you, Nancy. That's a wonderful perspective. And to your point too about others, you know, I think, you know, we have a great relationship with an aging population in Dublin. So we're going to want them to be connected to this as well as those who have disabilities. And there are so many other sort of groups that we need to include, if you will. So, you know, we need to make sure and hold each other sort of honest and accountable in doing that. So as we go forward and you see those kind of opportunities of others that we need to include, because this is about being inclusive, please be my conscience about bringing and our conscience, right? Because this is team sport here, about make sure we're bringing those others to this table. So thank you for that. That's really, really insightful. Vincent.
Hey, Dan. First of all, thank you so much, Dana and Mayor Emerald Grooms, for your trust to include me as part of this exciting body. And I can see that we have a lot of diverse voice here. And that's part of the reason that we moved to Dublin 11 years ago. My wife and I, and also we have two kids here in Dublin, one in 6th grade at Carr Middle School, one in Jerome High School as a freshman. We definitely enjoy this vibrant city and this very diverse community. And so as part of the experience, and we constantly talking about how do we really be a true community member, not only enjoy the perks and benefits of this community offer, and also contribute to this community to make it even better. So my day job is actually working for a telecommunication company, Charter Communications, as a analytics guy. And also in my spare time, I volunteer for two organizations. One is Ohio Chinese American Association, and also Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs Association. These two nonprofit groups, we do a lot of work in terms of volunteer for the community, and also champion the value of the American citizenship, American values, to make sure everybody understands we are equal citizens here, regardless of how you come to this country, your background, your nation origin. We can be an equal citizen here to not only build our American dream, but also contribute to other people's American dreams. So in the past few years with these two organizations, I have been involved in a lot of work, like working for the homeless shelters, senior homes, like work with our first responders, and also there are a few cases in the past few years I have been working with try to help them understand they have rights, can protect themselves. So I am very excited to be part of this committee and this task force. I'm very excited to work with everyone here. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Vincent, and thanks for the connection to the Chinese American Association, and they've been extremely helpful in our outreach efforts through our police department, and we made a connection through there as well. So thank you so much for that and for your willingness to take part in this task force. Look forward to your participation. And with that, we're going to go to Stephen White. Stephen.
Dana, thank you so much. Distinguished members of this task force, it's an honor to join you today. Dana, I want to thank you, Mayor Grooms, and all of City Council, as well as Dr. Holdley, who's on the line here today, for your leadership in putting together this incredible task force that's going to be addressing some very important issues. My background, I'm a Cincinnati native, so a little bit on the other side of the state from Cleveland. Born and raised down in Cincinnati. I'm a first generation college student, went to The Ohio State University for my undergrad and graduate studies there, and worked about 10 years or so after graduate school in DC and here in Ohio, working in the U.S. Senate. Focusing on various public policy issues, everything from workforce development to education to helping to combat the opioid crisis here in our state and the nation. Right now, and then after that, I actually work at COSI, Center of Science and Industry. I went from the Senate to work at COSI about 2 years ago. I'm one of the vice presidents there, working on issues related to engaging, inspiring, and transforming lives around science and technology. And the reason for that is one of the things that I'm a firm believer of is that, I think education is a great equalizer, particularly now in this environment that we're in right now, is that, education can help uplift folks out of poverty, can help provide folks with pathways for the future. I am a Dublin resident, proud Dublin resident. I've been here now for about 5 years, living here in Dublin with my wife and two little ones. I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old that's keeping me on my toes every day. One of the things that I chose Dublin, and we chose Dublin, I should say, my wife and I, is because of, Dublin's a unique city. It's a city that's innovative. It's a city that is smart, inclusive, and really has a boldness to be great. And I see that in not only the work of our great businesses, and some of whom are on the task force here today, but it's people. And it's something that we recognize not only in the school system, but just generally the culture. And and you see that playing out candidly with this task force, with this determination to create this perfect union that the mayor talked about earlier. And as I think about this task force, I think it's come at the right moment. And so when I got the call from you, Dana, in the city, I said, of course, I would want to be part of this, to stand up and serve the community in a way that is needed right now, particularly because we're at a unique moment in history around these two defining moments. One moment being a once in a lifetime pandemic that has literally fundamentally changed aspects of our lives in a very impactful way. And then on the other hand, you also have this moment in history of a reawakening of societal inequities that has caused us to pause and take a hard look at really all facets of our society. And so my hope from this task force is to look at, how can we move the needle when it comes to diversity and inclusion by looking at sort of I call it the sort of the 3 W's, right? Versus the who, the who, the what, and the why. The who meaning, how can we really impact those lives and our constituents and our neighbors and our community, whether that be young, old, regardless of their age, candidly, regardless of their race, because this is a issue that transcends backgrounds. And so how can we help them to elevate individuals in our community around this important topic to create that equity that we so desire? And then around the what are the things that we're going to do? What are the recommendations that we're going to provide to you and to City Council on tangible strategies that we can execute upon? My hope is at the end of this and the report that we generate results in action that can be done for our city to continue to make it great and continue to grow and have that perfect union. And then finally, the why. The why is, again, a recognition that we are in a defining moment right now. And this task force is positioning our city and our community to really be a leader when it comes to diversity and equity. And so with that, I'm excited. I think this is going to be a really engaging, spirited dialogue that many of us are going to have with not only the folks on this line today, but just the general public. And so with that, I just want to thank you again, Dana, for pulling this group together, your leadership in making it happen. And I'm excited to get to work.
Great. Well, thanks, Stephen. I appreciate that. Some really great thoughts. And I'm jealous of this guy because every time I see him, he's like playing. You play at COSI. I know it's hard work, but he's always having fun, and I'm envious.
Do a science experiment, right? We should do one tonight to kick things off. I'm just kidding.
There you go. We'll do that. That sounds great. Well, thanks for being a part of this, Stephen. We really appreciate it. Now, I hope you felt this was time well spent, just to get to know each other a little bit about, if you will, hopes and aspirations and thoughts. If you don't mind, I'm going to take just a couple more minutes, and I'm going to let staff introduce themselves as well, because I'm just really pleased that they're going to help me with the task force and be supportive. So it'd be good to know your staff members as well, because they're here. We're here to support you in advancing what it is you want to do and how you want to go about it. So Deviani, I'm going to pick on you first. Would you mind just taking a minute or two here to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Dana. Thank you so much. And Mayor Grooms too. What a great leadership. I have been working for Dublin for last 6 years, but I have been Dublin resident for last 17 years. So this is my home too. My kids go to Dublin schools. Dr. Hodi, your leadership, we always appreciate. For this task force, I mean, I have read the names, but hearing about the backgrounds and your experiences and your thoughts, it's extremely impressive. And I am very, very hopeful for our city, for myself, as we start dialogues and come up with great recommendations. Like you said, Stephen, very action-oriented recommendations that we can implement short-term as well as long-term. So thank you again so much for having us on the task force as your support and as part of the task force as well.
JM?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us on the task force, Dana and Mayor Grooms. As Deviani said, it really is a privilege and an honor to be able to support this group. We very much believe in the mission, and we're happy to be part of the journey. So we're here to support you and support the initiatives of this group. So thank you.
Thanks, JM. Shirley?
Hi, everyone. My name is Shirley Blaine. I'm new to the City of Dublin's team. I joined in June. So it's been an interesting time to join, but I think the City of Dublin is doing some great things. I originally came from the Columbus Zoo and Aquarium, doing social media for them. So in my role here at the City of Dublin, I do public relations and social media, press release writing, and trying to support the communications of the city. So I'm interested in finding out more about what your task force is going to come together to bring new ideas to the city and how they can address equality and for everyone. So thank you all for joining us all tonight, and I'll be monitoring for public comments to read at that time.
Great. Thanks, Shirley. It's great having her on the team. And yeah, there's a tough time to be joining the team right now when we're all kind of separated and doing all of that. But she's doing a wonderful job for us, has jumped right in and been very helpful. So thank you for that. Ann, do you want to come up and say hello to everyone?
Sure, Dana. I think the only longer tenured person in this group is probably Dana. I've been clerk in the city for 29, almost 30 years. So just really glad to be helping out with this group, and just so impressed with everyone's thoughts and comments and background. So very excited about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Thanks for your support of this committee tonight. Really do appreciate it. Just real quick, I've been with the city for 32 years. So yes, I do have you beat by a couple of years, Ann, but we've had the pleasure of working together all those years, served in various roles here with the city, and have had the privilege and the honor to be the city manager appointed by city council I'm into my 6th year, which is hard to believe, but anyway, just what a honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to do things like this. And I actually dedicate my life and live my life for democracy. So that's a little geeky, but I'm a geek when it comes to that. So, and I'm proud of it. So really look forward to supporting you all and doing the great business that you're going to do. So thank you again for taking the time to do that. And as we have other members that join, we will certainly put them on the spot as well and ask them to do the same so that everyone gets to know each other. So with that, I'd like to move on to our next agenda item. And it's brainstorm ideas on public engagement sessions for the community. I kind of put this up front because I really want to tap into your thoughts while I got you really fresh here on ideas about ways that we might be able to bring the community together and have dialogue. Like I said, we've got the Chiefs Advisory Committee, we have this task force, but City Council wanted to make sure that we were providing these engagement opportunities to bring the community together. What's really going to be fun about this discussion is the challenge in the context that we're in with COVID-19 and as you see with online. And so that's a bit of a challenge, but I'm up for taking that on and trying to find ways to do that. So I'm interested in thoughts about not so much method, but we can always talk about that. But what, just generally speaking, what do you all think about that notion of trying to bring the community together and have engagement, be it discussion, dialogue? I think when I talk to some of you, I use the example of maybe town hall type gatherings. And I know sometimes that's kind of, oh, that sounds old school, but are there topics that could be associated with that? We've had some success with those, but we're open to any and all ideas about methods and of course, what to talk about and methods to go about doing that. So I guess what I'll do is try to facilitate by recognizing people if you have thoughts and ideas you'd like to bring forward on this topic. And by the way, as we go through the next couple topics, we don't have to have all the answers tonight. This is just sort of icebreaker stuff and to get some initial thoughts and ideas. So with that, anyone want to offer any thoughts or suggestions?
Yeah, I can start. I think that idea is a great idea because there is a lot of residents who definitely want to get some things off their chest and make their voices be heard. An example of one of these town halls that you're talking about where city engagement would be Martin Luther King Jr. Sunday Supper, where we bring in city leaders to talk about the city's diversity and inclusion. This is something that we can keep going on. Another way is I definitely feel we need to hear more from students. So Dr. Hoadley, even if you want to think about something where within individual schools, these individual schools have a little town hall amongst themselves, because students within the city definitely have a lot to say, but they may not be comfortable in an environment where it's not people who look like them because they're still young. But I definitely think another public engagement for residents to speak openly would definitely be a good thing.
I think along with that, and this is more of a methodology, but looking at ways that we can utilize technology in order to kind of reach more people. So when you're thinking about, the types of people that we're reaching, these meetings are typically probably going to be 6 to 8, but what about those who aren't working, a typical 9 to 5 schedule? So if you're working a second or a third shift, then maybe you don't have the opportunity. So I think there's a big opportunity to use different types of surveys and things like that, and figuring out how we engage people in that way, so that we're not missing out on hearing from people just because they're not able to attend these different kinds of meetings.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I think I love the idea of leveraging the power of technology. I think first off, this is a very important issue for the engagement piece. I think we could do it in a variety of different ways. Surveys, for example, surveys, simple, leveraging the power of social media to just get surveys from the community that we could on particular topics. There could be ways that we could do focus groups on specific topics. So it's, we could do the larger kind of listening session just to kind of let people get things off their chest, which I think is a great idea as well. But then also, can we focus in on certain topics, right? So if it's education, or if it's workforce, or if it's, whatever the issue might be, we have focus groups on those particular topics. I think could be another opportunity for us to explore.
Focus groups are a great idea.
I would like to bring what I deal with families every day, all day long. If you want to reach the Moss community that live in Dublin with language barriers, we have a lot of families that live around in Dublin that cannot read or understand the language if you put those surveys for them to fill them out in the computer, or even though if you send them via mail. So if you're thinking in reaching out to them, those might be, they have to be translated. If you want to reach to the most of the community, if you're thinking just in the English speaking community, they might be okay, but if you want to reach the whole community of Dublin, you have to think in languages, because that's what we do in this school. We translate all the communication that is, going out to different languages to be able to reach out to all the parents and all the students, so they are able to understand the communication that goes out.
I echo that, because with the risk of sounding somewhat stereotypical, there are cultures that tend to be, let's say, more quiet than others, right? There are nationalities, ethnicities that do not, quite frankly, feel comfortable speaking up, either because they feel that it's rude, or that they're really not wanting to hear what I think kind of mentality. So you have to make sure, as long as we're bringing this to people, to pay attention not only to the language, but also to the way or the method that we make available for people. The town hall idea would be great. I think many of us would be probably very comfortable in that setting, but there will be people who wouldn't even think about going to a town hall. And even if they were there, they would have a hard time understanding what's going on, or they just don't feel comfortable speaking up. So we have to be very cognizant of different communication style, and really, in some ways, get to the people specifically and say, what do you really think? Because we really want to hear.
And just to go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, to piggyback what Isel has just said, I know that even the communities that speak English, like they are so conscious of their accent, and Americans are not very patient with accents, and so what has happened, a lot of that group just don't attend a lot of these meetings, and so I definitely think if you call a public meeting, you will get the usual confident people who speak out, and you will leave a lot of people. I would wonder or propose sort of like Sylvina, who knows the community, to be able to, and if you just have like one person, because even as Kofi was saying, sometimes people get intimidated even if they're confident, and they're like, and they don't want to speak in a big group. So usually have just the same usual people that speak. So I guess what I'm thinking is, if each of us are a representative of the community, but also have like, if it's just one more person, so that they can see it's not just like, if I'm going to the African community, it's not just me again, but to see that the Dublin city is really serious, and just have like one or two representatives and have like focus groups for something like that.
I was going to say that one of the things we did in Chicago at one point was we connected with the faith community as well, because a lot of the times people who are not confident to speak at a public setting feel safe in their community of faith. And we did table gatherings, and at the table gatherings, there were special conversations that could happen in a safe space that was in the community they called home. So perhaps looking at different sectors, you know, such as, you know, community organizations, you could have schools, but you could also integrate the faith community. And I think Columbus does that at the table, sort of an event that is for the entire city. I'm sorry. It's for the entire city, where people come together and they speak, and they come together and speak about certain themes. So maybe hosting something like that for the city of Dublin, and it encompasses every single community. I don't know, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think they call those big table events. I've attended a couple of those.
Yes, I have too. Yeah.
Very effective.
And I found those to be very effective because they're sort of grassroots driven, and it's not the city mandating it, but it's more so community members hosting it.
Yeah, these are great comments. I have a couple of thoughts. So this is a very diverse community, and a different community, they respond to different formats, different styles differently, right? I think we definitely need to have some kind of ongoing communication, let's say focus groups or town hall meetings. That will be very helpful. You need to establish some kind of cadence. People know that if I want to join, the meetings are there. In the meantime, if we have some kind of informal meet and greet, and so Dr. Hoadley is here, I definitely appreciate him hosting the like periodic coffee hours. He just sit there, people feel free to pop in. So it is not a large gathering, people can come in, it is less intimidating. So that will be welcomed as well. And in the meantime, another idea would be like everyone else said. So rather than bring people into the meeting, we bring the meeting into the community. Like let's say they have some kind of community meetings or have a faith gathering and so forth. So we bring a couple of people from the city of Dublin to join them. That way they feel like, oh, we are part of their group. So we're engaged. Then they will feel a little bit more comfortable sharing what they are thinking.
Yeah, I also want to add the idea of, and I think that's a great idea to kind of bring it to them. And you know, this is one of the hopes here that I have for the task force is be data driven, right? Using data to drive a lot of our discussions. And so perhaps there's a way that we could bring in data to some of these meetings to facilitate discussions or start conversations around particular topics. And that could take the form of, you know, guest speakers. You know, if we wanted to bring someone that is an expert, a policy expert on a particular topic that could weigh in on a certain subject. Dana, I know you mentioned Steve Francis, who's doing great work right now across our community. Perhaps he has thoughts on who those speakers could be that could help kind of start the dialogue to get people to be interested in joining these meetings, but then also they learn more about the particular topic at hand.
That's an excellent point. I come from a a business intelligence background. So with Wendy's, I worked within business intelligence, where we were responsible for a lot of our enterprise data of all different types. So I think that that would be useful just even for us internally here in determining, you know, what types of programming and things, to your point, make the most sense. That way we're taking a more targeted approach versus, I mean, although this group is a very diverse group, honestly, we are still only a couple of people out of the entire population. So being able to have that data and make targeted decisions versus kind of making assumptions on what we think people may need, I definitely think that that's going to be something that's very useful.
I'm wondering if the Dear Dublin, Ohio group, I mean, there were so many stories shared there, and there's so much data there as far as the different groups and what the, you know, where the issues lie. I mean, I don't know who runs it, but I felt that it was so rich as I read so many of their stories. I could identify, I knew who some of the kids were. So I think we have a base with the kids, and I mean, in the education sector, we have something, and we do have some data about the insensitivity that is there. I don't know what the city would like to see this task force do. I mean, do you have any data as the city? You guys have done focus groups in the past. What is there that's already there as a foundation for us to perhaps build upon?
Yeah, I think fundamental demographics and shifts that we've seen is pretty much the extent of it. I don't know that we have a lot of other data beyond that. I think Todd might have a little bit more. Deviani JM, from the planning perspective, I don't know if any perspectives on that from our planning division, but certainly, you know, the demographic shift, the changes, those kinds of things, as well as just kind of a tenor of who's active in the community, where. I don't want to leave myself short on that. We spend a lot of effort in engaging various communities, be they the Japanese community, the Indian community as examples, and really getting to know those communities and others, and business, whether they be business, residential, or what have you, and having some dialogue with concerns and ideas that they've had over the years. It has not been as comprehensive as what we're trying to do with this. It's been more kind of targeted and when I say targeted, just based on a lot of the background I brought to this was really through economic development, and a lot of the engagement that we had in background with that. So that's been very helpful to us as a community to get to know people and engage with them and build relationships over the years. So Todd, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think the ideas presented so far have been excellent. I'd echo a couple. One is we have found it most effective to go out where people are comfortable. I can think, Sabina, we've had some of our PTO meetings at Diamond's Ice Cream to engage with the Hispanic Latino community, making sure also that when we're out in areas where it's not our turf, but theirs. I think that is really, really important. And I think we also should think about going slow and small before we try to scale really big. There are so many experts within our community that if we can reach out to just 30 people, that can be the voice of a lot more. And so in this pandemic, especially where we just can't open up the door to an auditorium and bring 800 people in, I think we want to continue to target those around our community who are already viewed as leaders and can help us further this discussion about how do we engage during trying times such as a pandemic. And if I could add one more, I appreciate Lynette bringing up the Dear Dublin. I really want to also continue to focus on our youth. Our youth have a lot to say. They have a lot of stories to share. And again, I give Kofi credit, engaging from Cincinnati. With this technology, our students who have moved away can still be with us in these meetings. That can be the same, not just on this committee, but also through these engagement sessions.
Wow, that's great thoughts, great information. I'm kind of interested about, so a lot of that was methods and outreach. Anything regarding and any thoughts on, and I don't want to go too far too fast, as even Todd suggested with topics, but are there sort of topical areas of interest that you think might be of interest, or do you think it's the surveying and the engagement, the outreach that drives that, as opposed to, I certainly don't, as a city, want to determine what that should be for everyone. I want the community to determine what that would be. So kind of, I think early on, I think Kofi mentioned the idea of just having a forum where people can come, and I think the word you used was event, and let people speak what's on their mind. That might inform us as to where some of the real concern and or ideas are that people want to hear about or have dialogue about. So probably trying to open that up in some way, whether in this environment it's surveying or it's small group engagement or what have you. So I don't want to presuppose any topics or anything like that, but are there any thoughts along those lines, or the best way to get at that?
Yeah, so to touch on that, I think that the best way to reach out, just from my personal experience, would kind of be what Mr. White said, like statistically and like these surveys and everything. There are definitely ways, like with the Dear Dublin, and you could like set up different like Google surveys to get information from other people. And I think like with me being a part of this, and Mr. McDaniel, you said that other students are gonna be involved in that we could be like pretty close liaisons to all the students, especially throughout the high schools, and it'd be really good informative ways to reach out to different students. And how Dr. Hoodley said that the student or the younger community have a lot of power nowadays. So I think it'd be really, really nice, like for me and the other incoming students and younger people that are going to be joining this task force, to reach out to the different students at the high schools and organizations that run like student council. And I know at least at Coffin, we have two organizations, Black Brother United and Black Sisters United. And so I think we could reach out to them, and it'd help out a lot.
Something I would like to touch on is before this task force, we had this meeting. Something I did was I created a survey and sent it out to current and past Black Kaufman students. And this helped a lot because I was able to get a lot of responses. And these responses led to dialogue that I had with various community leaders, like, Dr. Holy. It worked out well. And this is something that can be implemented almost citywide with Hispanic students, Asian students, and we can expand this to not just students. But when we're talking about where we want to start the dialogue, that's a good example that I thought about, starting with a survey, and then from the survey, looking at the top responses that we had or the top issues that were brought up.
Yeah, Kofi, I think that's a great recommendation. The power of surveys, and Dana, I think you sort of alluded to this, is that, I wouldn't want us to kind of presuppose what we feel these issues are in the community. Let's provide that opportunity for the community to sort of weigh in first on as to what they feel are these topics, whether it be education, jobs. We could develop sort of that list, or put it out there for the community to respond. We could send it out to students, families, businesses. We'd obviously have to figure out the different mechanisms to reach those different audiences. But perhaps we do the survey, and then we can also do the event. It could be digital, where we invite the public to come in and tell us, what do you think those subject matters are? This could be an opportunity, to Kofi's other point, which is that allowing them to share their stories, their feedback, and then out of that gives birth to these different topics that we see that we can then start to dig our teeth into and start to tackle.
I don't know if there's a way for, all of us here on the task force to somehow document maybe different organizations that we're part of or different networks that we have access to within the city, because I think that'll be a key component in just the idea of, even personally, if I were to see, the city of Dublin saying, hey, we're having this event, come tell us, come talk to us. I don't know that I would be as inclined to attend versus if I said, hey, for me, Black Tech 614, my nonprofit, if I said, hey, we're doing this event, City of Dublin is really invested, I really would like for you all to participate. I think that we're going to be much more likely to get participation that way. So I don't know if there's a way to maybe have a Google Doc, or I don't know if there's some other way that we can do that, but just kind of have a listing even of different organizations and whatnot that we're all kind of involved with or a part of, maybe on a regular basis.
I would echo what she's saying, because personally, I know that I've received several surveys, and I am so surveyed out right now from all ends. So I think, and the thing about surveys, as you say, usually just the same people who will also respond, not always, but even as Sylvina, I think most families are like, and then you see the city of Dublin, is this another one? So I think it would take each of us, as what Denisha is saying, to even follow through and say and tell them, hey, I'm sending you a survey. I'm more likely to respond to a survey when you tell me you're sending me a survey, as opposed to a blank survey where like, who's this? So I think it would take us to actively tell people, and it should have to be people that we know, and then hope that it can spread and grow from there, because of course we want to reach more than just who we know. But I think that would be more of a guarantee. And of course, yes, we can still do the blanket survey, but also in order to be deliberate in making sure we get the correct responses, not just polling a few people and saying they're a representation of what we're looking for.
I would lean more towards the small group community reach, because every community is going to come up with different issues or different opinion of their own. And big groups, like everyone said, they may not be comfortable coming up and talking. And maybe one of them, or maybe 2-3 of them, can come and voice the community opinion to us. Coming to big groups, it's very rare you see a lot of people coming. It's going to be the same people come in. So maybe smaller community groups, that would be better.
I agree with that. It's like Dr. Hotley said, start small and then maybe make it bigger. I also deal with a lot of parents with, technology issues. So if we send surveys, I would have to, some of those parents teach them that, or telling them that this survey is coming and that they have to get in and how to get in and answer. So there's a lot of teaching involved when it comes to technology. And so not only maybe the language or, interpret the questions if the survey is in English or if they're in Spanish, either or, just trying to assist them in how to go about, doing these surveys. And I'm sorry to come back, but some of the parents that I deal with many times cannot read, or sometimes they come and they're not literate, or the students are the one assisting the parents on how to do all these, going around the system or interpreting for the parents. So just maybe having a timeline to when you have to give these surveys or retreat the surveys, so you have a time to work with those people in the community, because we are all involved in our jobs as well. So maybe just as a suggestion.
That's a great. I'm a big believer the world gets changed through our children, and I'm going to really simplify this. When we did curbside recycling many years ago, we focused on the kids. We didn't waste our time with the adults. The kids are the ones who shamed their parents into the recycling. So I learned that lesson a long time ago.
And that's why I even think that surveying the kids, maybe. I mean, I truly believe that they are the ones active. They are the ones that have stirred a lot up. and they're our future. And so they have a pulse on the issues in our community, and perhaps we start from there and get the data. I mean, they speak to their family members, and maybe we have sections where they speak to the challenges that their parents face, or something like that. And we could find different sectors, but somehow connect. I mean, we have Dr. Hoadley here, somehow connect. And there's the disparity between the 3 high schools, right? They've talked so much about Scioto, Kaufman, and Jerome, and maybe identifying how do we bridge gaps there, because they identify 3 different sectors of Dublin, perhaps. I mean, we already know there's an interest there, and we have an engaged community there.
Yeah, and don't forget, we've got a pretty good sized portion of Dublin that's in Hilliard schools too. So, we need
Absolutely.
to make sure that they're represented as well. So this is fabulous. I mean, this is just absolutely amazing. So leveraging technology, surveying, data-driven, some data-driven decision-making, tailoring it to make sure that the folks that we're trying to reach out to can actually access it, and to Sylvina's point, that it's properly tailored, leveraging networks, as Tanisha pointed out, because that's that business intel coming out there. I think that, and I think and I'm just sort of summarizing a little bit. So there's so much that was said, and I took a lot of copious notes here, but I also think too, you tend to be leaning more back to like Rama's point, and I think Todd and others of you chimed in on that, is sort of that smaller group focus maybe initially, and perhaps this environment it probably lends itself most to that. But we got to leverage those networks, right, throughout the community to make sure that we are getting to all those networks that we can get to. Okay. Well, again, that's not an answer. That's just sort of a brief summary. Terrific discussion. I'm going to thank you for that. And we're not done. We'll circle back on that the next meeting and keep moving that forward. Let me go to the next topic, and it is 7:30, and I'm going to keep you till midnight, just so you know, but I won't do that to you. But I do want to go on to the next one, if that's okay. And these are ideas, suggestions, and I'll kind of go back to a comment that Kofi mentioned earlier, and that was the venting portion, if you will. What's on your mind? And you did a great job in your introductions. Some of this, I think you spoke to as we just talked about the previous topic. What's heavy on your minds? I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to bring that forward, that are idea suggestions of this task force, to the extent that you've had the opportunity to think about that prior to this meeting. Certainly, as I talked to you all on the phone, you all had passion and you had thoughts, or else you would not have advanced your name or reached out and said, hey, I'm interested. So is there any such thoughts that I want to make sure we have some time tonight to try to get some of those ideas and thoughts. So I'll just we'll go open mic on that. So whatever you got.
I would like to say what's really been on my mind is my children and their experience at the Dublin schools with regards to inequality. I don't think a lot of the kids realize things that they say are offensive. And I don't think that sometimes they are meaning to do that, but there's got to be a way. Again, I'm going back to the kids again, because you guys are, Kofi and Jamiel, and our children, they are our future, and they're going to change the trajectory of the way our community is today. And we saw that during the actual protest, peaceful protest, I want to reiterate, which Dana and Mayor Chris was there. It's so important that we get to the root of the issues. Why do we have so much fear? Why do we have so much misunderstanding of things? And I know my daughter, who's a senior, has experienced this at Jerome, being called names, racial names, and it was dealt with. but that was the tip of the iceberg. I know Principal Aaron, and I'm sure Dr. Hoadley, you have been spearheading this maybe at all of the high schools, but there's some diversity unit within Jerome where they're getting the children of color together so that they understand they've got a sounding board to talk to leadership at the high school, to talk to their peers about what they're experiencing, and how do they solve that. And the biggest thing was, I think there's another mother who is on here today who may have been included in that meeting, but we don't want just the ethnic children. We want also the white children and everybody else involved to talk about these discussions so that we can learn from one another. But that's been really big on my heart, because when your kid comes home and they're upset about an experience that they had that was very negative, especially when it pertains to that, when amongst all what's going on in America right now, and really what their focus should be is learning and being educated, and they've got to come home and worry about how they're going to be treated because of who they are. It's discouraging and disempowering as a parent to see your kid go through that. So it's not like it was back in the 50s and 60s and even before that, way worse, but we're still not to a place where you were having open dialogue about it, and the kids feeling comfortable talking about what they're afraid of and why there's so much tension. But that is definitely on my heart, to just have more opportunities for kids, for all of our kids, to talk through what they're experiencing and how they can make that experience in school in terms of diversity better.
And I would echo what Erica is saying. I think that what's on my heart is also my kids. I have a middle schooler who's an 8th grader who has opted to do remote learning, not because of COVID, but just because of how difficult 7th grade was. Just being called names because of her ethnicity and her difference. And I think that this summer, the Dear Dublin, Ohio brought her together with a community of kids who had the same pain. And unfortunately, her group of friends since 3rd grade through where she's at now, it's totally decimated, because she's now aware. So there's an awareness. And so what do we do with this awareness with these middle schoolers? I don't want my daughter to get homeschooled through senior year. She has to integrate in the community that we call home, but how do we make it safe to do so? And how do we celebrate her difference and create that? I don't think all kids tend to be mean, but some are very mean. And so how do we address this? It's what's on my heart.
And I think, moving up from, so we've got our youth, and then I think of myself as I consider myself to be a young professional, working primarily within Dublin, and kind of the dual experience that I have within the community, because for me, I've had a great experience, from a career perspective, and being able to interact with lots of people within Dublin, lots of different types of events in Dublin. But I think about the experience that I have from coming from work with my blazer on and, my slacks, and then the experience that I have when I'm in Dublin, because I did live in Dublin for about a little over a year and a half. The experience that I have in Dublin when I'm just going out wearing sweatpants, and how different that experience is for me. I feel very welcome. I feel like I belong within the Dublin community from a business standpoint. But when it comes to, or at that time when it came to being just a resident of Dublin, I didn't have that same sense of belonging or that same feeling of being a well-respected person. So I think it's important for me as, a young professional, other young professionals, but also just adults, children, everyone, recognizing that those experiences do differ. And that I think a big piece of it is, a lot of people that I am familiar with, or a lot of people that are familiar with me, maybe from a business perspective, would not necessarily think that I had those other experiences just because they know me only in that one capacity. And so and again, I don't have solutions. I don't have ideas or anything really about this. It's just a matter of, what can we do to draw attention, again, awareness, Lynette, to your point, that these, people that we're interacting with on a daily basis, especially people from underrepresented or marginalized groups, kind of are dealing with this dual identity. And we just view them in one way, just because that's the way that we know them. And so encouraging people to think a little bit harder about, maybe the people that you work with or the people you go to school with, what does their life look like outside of the corporate office, outside of school, outside of whatever. And I think once we can start to really bring that awareness as well, that's when people will start to do some of that self-reflection that's going to be needed, because a lot of the issues that we face are not necessarily people problems, but they're systemic problems. And I believe that, I consider myself to be a realist. I try to be as optimistic as possible, but I don't necessarily see a future where racism does not exist, or sexism or ableism or any of those things. And I think that's why we really need to put strong focus on how do we make sure that our systems and our processes are able to mitigate those different types of biases, all the isms that we see, so that it doesn't matter, who the people are, as long as the systems are set up to prevent those types of things.
If I can just add to what Denisha said about multiple identities, I mean, speaking for the LGBTQ community, it permeates and transcends every ethnicity, race, socioeconomic status, faith. I mean, it's been good to know that, but also that comes with a lot of complexity and nuances. And I think it's important to speak on behalf of the LGBTQ children and youth in our city, but also the parents who parent those children. I've talked to a few parents in my new role, and there's definitely a need of some support, support networks. So I think like the challenge is to think about that as we think about the youth, but also think about the parents as well and what kind of role they play into it.
Yeah, I want to build on the feedback that Erica and Lynette shared. I think the focus of the youth is critically important. I'm really passionate about that as well, and making sure that they have the opportunity to succeed in the schools. One of the other topics I was hoping that we could address through this as well is this issue of diversity in the workplace and job opportunities as well here in Dublin. And I think those two are connected, in that, providing them not only a safe space to be able to succeed in school, but then also provide them with opportunities in our city to then go on to careers with some of our businesses as well. And what does that look like? What are those opportunities and challenges are from a diversity standpoint? So I'd love to see that as a potential topic as well.
Many of experiences that I've heard just now, reminded me of my childhood. I think I mentioned that I was a Taiwanese kid growing up in Japan. And if you know anything about East Asian history, the word complicated is kind of an understatement. And I was the kid that was always picked on because I was a Taiwanese kid in a class full of Japanese kids, and in some cases I would get rocks thrown at me, and kids will call you all kinds of things. So I think that experience is shared. Kids are oftentimes more outwardly cruel because they say what they think and they act out on what they want to act. Adults, even if they may have some similar thoughts, at least would hold back somewhat. And so I think if we're truly wanting to get to what people think or what the mentality of the community is, I do definitely echo the need to pay attention to what our children go through in school. Somewhat as an extension of that thought, I think it's also important for us to realize that even though here in our group, we all recognize that there is an issue here, there is a problem, or there is an opportunity for us here in the city of Dublin, not just the country. But I think we also need to recognize that there is a bunch of people in the city of Dublin that think everything's just fine, and that there is nothing we need to talk about. And people that want to talk about stuff, they just are ungrateful. They just are here to destroy our way of life. I don't want to make it an overly political statement because that's not what we're here for, but I think we need to pay attention to that and find out perhaps, how widespread that type of thinking might be, because that tells us what it is that we will be dealing with. That tells us our starting point. So when we go and talk to people and say, hey, what do you think are the opportunities for us? Tell us about your experience. I think we also need to make sure that we're not focusing so much on the groups that we are connected with, but I guess for the lack of better terms, the more general Dublin.
That's a great point too. And when you consider, talking about our youth, and yes, we definitely need to reach our youth, but at the end of the day, they're going home to parents that may not be on the same page as we are, to your point. And so that's a good point. And, how can we reach those parents? Those are ultimately the people who we need to hopefully not get a hold of, but we need to get in front of and talk to, because those children learn these things from somewhere. And so even beyond that, in situations where we are doing everything that we can to reach those children, but they go home and maybe there's, hey, mom or dad or whoever, I learned this at school today, and it's like, oh, well, no, we don't do that here. Don't worry about any of that, because that is a very real thing. So just another tidbit. I like that point that you brought up.
I was going to add something, and I think Stephen had mentioned something at the beginning, the who, and I don't remember what the other was. It why? I can't quite remember. But one of the things, even as we're talking about equity, I'm also finding that equity per who. I mean, who's defining equity? So maybe start with what is equity, and so that we have a common ground. Also, if we need a speaker for that. And I just wanted to share an experience, and going back to Denisha, what you said about how the dual identities. So when we first moved here, we've been here about 10 years, and my husband likes to go work out like 4 a.m. The first time he went at 4 a.m, he got stopped by a cop. They said he was kind of swerving or whatever. I mean, the husband doesn't drink or anything, but anyhow, so that was the first time. And then it happened the second time, same thing, not really anything they could find. Then it happened the third time. And after that, he changed his routine. He will not go work out at night. Then my son, who likes to ride his bikes with his friends, and he was even riding his bike to church. And just this week, my husband says, no, don't ride your bike out. So his experience now transfers to my son, who's like, what's the big deal? But those kind of issues, as Denisha, you're saying, they're complex. You can't quite explain them. But it's being able to, maybe some of you have never even thought twice, like you've driven out at night, you don't have to worry about it, you have to think ahead. But those are the kind of experiences sometimes when you have, that you end up even transferring the fear to your kids, or your kids discover, like, I think what broke my heart this week, because I was part of a panel just listening to young people, and one young Black girl, she said, growing up, I mean, she's grown up in a predominantly white community, and she's always known I'm a part of everybody, until she reaches that place where she realizes they don't accept me. They accept me as long as I stay in my, they don't, I'm not really one of them. And just that knowledge is, and I guess that's the thing we're talking about. How do we make ourselves understand each other? And why I guess we're focusing on the children, because I believe education is the place where we make the changes. I grew up in Kenya where we had different tribes, but when we got to school, we all became one. So a lot of those problems, even though they were at home, all of us kind of understood each other, and then we learned to mingle with each other. So I think that those interactions are important, because as you're saying, even though, you teach this, the kids go back to their families, and their families say, either they shut that down, or they present, this is who we are as a family. We are not like that. So like I don't have the answers and the solutions. I just know that it's definitely a conversation that needs to be taking place so that they can hear this. When you say this, this is what it makes me feel. Or did you know this is my experience? So just that kind of open forum.
Kind of to touch on what Ms. Shafawara just said. Yeah, so she was talking about how she, her son had the experience, and I would have a similar story with that. A few weeks ago, actually, I was at the store and I was with my dad and we bought just one item, and the cashier didn't give us a bag to walk out the store. And my dad asked if we can have a bag, please. And I was like, why do we need a bag? It's just one item. And then when we got outside, he was like, there are just some things that, you know, as a person of color, you just have to do, because you never know if you walk out of a store without a bag and you're just holding something, you're just walking out the store, they might assume someone just from another store just looks out and sees you and they're like, oh, is he stealing something? And, you know, the generic having to talk about when you get pulled over, what to do and things like that. And it's something that's just, yeah, it's really hard to like take in. And it's also hard to tell other people about, because they'll be like, that's silly. Like, why would you ever have to take a bag out of a store if you're buying a bottle of tea or something? And it's like, it's just something that's hard to explain to other people, but it's real. And it's just, yeah, and like, especially, yeah, with Trayvon Martin, how he had a bag of Skittles and ice and a bottle of tea. And I mean, it cost his life for that. And it's just something that we have to, especially when we're younger, like even elementary school or middle school, have to reiterate into the students so that they learn it young, because when you learn things younger, it sticks with you more often. And I think that there are definitely some ways that we could do that through the school system, but that's probably a subject and a talk for another day. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. So
when it comes to our youth, I strongly believe that it's an issue on two fronts. So I believe it's an issue that starts in the household, first of all, when it comes to watching TV, seeing something on Twitter, YouTube, this type of dangerous rhetoric that can hurt other students, it starts in the house. And the students then go to school and they act on what they talked about, what they saw on TV or what is. And this can have a huge effect, because when the students then act out what it is that's going on at home, it can hurt minority groups. But I want to emphasize that this is also, and I'm aware of it, it's a process. So somehow, some way that we can fight this issue is by the town hall that we talked about, or the small focus groups. And then at school, administrators, teachers just not tolerating it. Because Jamiel was talking about the Trayvon Martin issue. The survey that I sent out to the Black students at Kaufman, we have Black students getting called Trayvon Martin for simply having a hoodie on, right? So it's definitely a two-front issue, and it all goes hand in hand. And Stephen, you're talking about the diversity in the workplace. It's hard to get diversity in the workplace in Dublin when you have Black students, for example, not wanting anything to do with Dublin when they graduate. Speaking for myself, when I graduated Kaufman, the Black students in my grade, my friend group, off the top of my head, I can't name somebody who wants to come back to Dublin because of how bad of an experience it was growing up here. So it's not just one battle on one side, it's a battle on both sides, at home and at school. And everything that we're talking about goes hand in hand.
If I may, I add something. I would like to say, I wanted to be part of this task force to bring a positive message to the community. I didn't want to pull forces from one group to another group, or to divide, groups, or get one, stronger than the other. I wanted to find common grounds to bring some message to the community and get messages from the community to us to get some positive ground rules on to how to assist them. I don't know if we can do that in just, a week or 2 weeks. It might take a long time. It's just, gathering pools to see what the community needs. But I would not want to get into, what a group, is mad about, or what another group is mad about, because I hear from my group, things that they are dealing with, or things that they bring from from wherever they are coming from, and they're experiencing now, or in the school I see things that are happening that it's sometimes difficult to share, and you are sometimes trying to bring the positive message for them to get along. So I think I wanted to kind of be part of something that if we create, we can bring that positive to them, for all of them to be accepted, to all have a message, to all communicate and use verbal communication instead of using different things to act out. I don't know if that's possible, but that's what I was thinking.
I think all things are possible. It's how you all want to go forward with this. So we will work every angle possible. So this is great. I really appreciate it. And Todd let me know by text that he's got to depart for a board meeting at 8 o'clock. I thought my meeting started late. That's pretty late. So as he departs here, I just wanted to say thank you, Todd.
Dana, thank you. And I want to thank the Board of Education. We actually shifted our meeting so I could participate tonight. So I want to thank our Dublin board. And I want to thank everyone for allowing me to be part of this. And I would just say also, and I want to kind of close my comments tonight off of Sylvina and Isa's comments from a few moments ago. I think sharing that an inclusive community is good for everyone and benefits everyone will be so absolutely necessary in this. I go back to the numbers, Dana, that you provided. 70% of our residents are white. And so there's going to have to be why does this conversation help me understanding? And I think Dublin has so many wonderful things. Moving the bar and becoming even more inclusive can elevate Dublin even higher than it already is. And so I want to operate under that position of it is only good when we have these conversations and when we can understand each other more. That is, again, only good for all of us. So again, thanks everyone for allowing me to be part of this tonight. And I look forward to the next time that we're together. Thanks, everyone.
Todd, our regards for pushing the meeting back and so that you could be part of this. We very much appreciate it.
Thanks.
On that topic, any other thoughts? Vincent, did you have something?
I definitely agree that the youth experience and adult experience are different, and because they're the environment they grow up in are different, and also their life experiences are different. We definitely need to hear from the youth and also from the adults, and also they are kind of influencing each other, because kids talk about certain things, experience certain things, they go back home, they talk to the parents, and the parents do the same as well. And I think a lot of the bias and prejudice most likely are stemming from the communication gaps, and they different groups of people, they have different ways of thinking, different places they go. There are gaps in between, in a way that how they communicate with each other, and also there are cultural nuances. Then how do we bridge the gap? And we need to come up with something that can help people to talk to each other more. Maybe they immerse themselves into the same environment more. What I experienced as an Asian American first generation, and my case our second generation here in Dublin, we didn't experience attacks or verbal abuse as much, but what I observed was like Asian Americans, adults tend to huddle together with each other in the same racial identity. For the kids, when they were young, like in kindergarten or first grade, different racial groups, they tend to mingle with each other, no problem. When kids get older and older, I can see that more kids are like more comfortable talking to their like same racial groups. Like Asian kids, they tend to hang out together more. They tend to have more similar sports events or study together. So I don't have a solution. I just want to share this observation. How can we let these kids or these adults, they mingle together more? Maybe we come up with some events like the school's multicultural night or something that people will have the opportunity to experience, to get exposed to different thoughts, different ideas.
I think I kind of agree with Vincent on that. It's not just the kids, it's even the parents. They try to hang out with the parents of the same cultural backgrounds. Maybe that's what it comes from the parents, I guess. But I agree on that when they are younger, when they go to kindergarten, they are with everybody. But as they grow older, you can see them only with the kids of their culture together. So maybe that might be a gap. We can work on filling in with the kids. So
yeah, I think it's a two-way street, and one is like, so different groups like as Asian, I think from my own perspective, I think I need to reach out to different groups more. Like I think look at how other people are doing and also what they are doing, right? So try to participate. In the meantime, also I'd like to invite other community groups to like participate in like, let's say my group, we have some events. I'd like to invite different groups to participate as well. So, and for kids, sometimes parents, the way how parents behave or where the parents should take them to will influence their thinking and also their comfort level as well.
Yeah, and I think it's also a two-way street. I agree with that point that, you know, being able to highlight sort of the kind of
push me.
Sorry, we got the little guy here. So one of the things is that I think this issue that Kofi recommended, that highlighted before, I think is something we really have to get at. Sorry, can you sit down for 1 second? Sorry about that, guys. Is how do we make our kids want to stay here and live here and work here for the, like, that is something that we have to really work on.
Yeah, my daughter Kofi feels the same way, and she's getting ready to graduate next year, and it's so sad to hear that in her experience, she doesn't want to stay in Dublin. She wants to be far away as possible where she can commingle with people who accept her for who she is. And again, not to say that every single kid is like that, because it's not. I think it's done unconsciously. You know, people aren't mindful about what they're saying. But again, to everyone's point about the parents, it absolutely stems there. And we can do these events, we can do these multicultural things that get people together. But I think for true change, we have to have these uncomfortable conversations on the basis of educating one another and understanding what is the deal? What are we afraid of? I mean, systemic racism, on all accounts, not just Black and brown, yellow, green, everybody, but in particularly the Black and brown community. Why is it so still prevalent to this day? There's a fear base behind that, underneath that, and having a town hall meeting, something where we can get people to come and allow them to speak in a safe space to talk through these issues. I feel we've got to find a way to get down to that underlying problem. And it begins with these tough conversations like we're even having right now.
Definitely, and I know I'm talking a lot. I just have a lot to say. But one other, I wanted to make a quick follow up to Sylvina. You had made a comment about wanting to, bring a positive lens, and while I do think that's important, I think that it's also important that we are being very intentional about what we're doing. And to be honest, there's not a lot of what's going on. The reason that we even have to have this conversation, a lot of it isn't positive. And so to me, I think the positive lens comes from creating a space to bring awareness and education and create actionable change. I don't think it's necessarily about, what is one group mad about or whatnot, but maybe that is the thing. We hear a lot about, the different issues that are going on, but who are we not hearing? What voices are being suppressed? What issues do we not know about? And so I think that for me, at least, I want to know what other people are mad about so that we can figure out, what it is exactly that we need to do in order to address those types of issues. Because similar to what we talked about earlier, I could assume what people of color are going through, or women, or people within the LGBTQIA community. I can make all these assumptions, but many people don't even know that those things are an issue. So with 70% people, like you said, Dana, being white, or whatever the majority is, male or female or whatever it might be, I think that it is important that we are, the positive piece to me is that we're going to address this head on versus kind of tiptoeing and trying to make everyone happy. Because when we do that, I think that we still, I know that we keep, it's a cycle. We run back into the same problems, and the people who miss out are the same people who are trying to bring light to the situation and who are underrepresented.
Yeah, and you may always have that part of the population that is just never going to be responsive. They're going to be where they are. But if you, let's say, of some percentage of the community, and that can even cross over into cultures, right, and race, where people are kind of locked up in their own world or their own perception of the world. And how do we get people to cross over and integrate with each other and to engage with each other? I think is a great challenge of this task force to help us figure that out. And how do we breach that gap, breach that the gap that exists between not just race, but among cultures and so forth. So, and ages and disabilities and lots of things. So this has been an amazing discussion. I don't want to cut anyone short. So I believe I can sit here all night and would love it, because I'm really enjoying this. Bridget, is there anything you wanted to say?
Yes, these are very difficult issues, I think. And I guess in the back of my mind, I am concerned about what might be the silent majority, which is not represented on this task force. I think it might be beneficial if, besides getting input, which we absolutely need, and being sensitive to everyone's experiences, in my mind, I'm wondering if the city has its own vision of the task force. For example, I'm thinking that, I don't mean to make it superficial and use the word branding, but does the city, it's interesting to consider, a lot of us are focused on race right now and inclusion and equity, but that has to have meaning. And I think that maybe we can help the city, or maybe the city's already had these conversations, I don't know. But if there was almost like a top-down decision to be a multicultural suburb, that could be helpful. I think that I'm a little bit worried about getting input from everybody and not necessarily having the overall support within the community to make substantive changes that I think absolutely need to happen. So I don't know the details of that. I'm just very concerned.
No, I think that's a great observation, Bridget. I think when you're trying to move society, in general. It's a heavy lift, and it's in that, you know, I don't want you all to feel so burdened that it's not something that we can achieve. What I hear in voices here are, this group can help the city to make that difference and to make that change. I think part of it is you accept going in that there's just some you may never change. And again, I will repeat, that belongs in a lot of different groups. But if we can move the community towards embracing each other, whatever that means, and whatever that means to people, and crossing over in these gaps, and the thing that disturbs me so much when I in this conversation is that when our kids don't want to live here, to grow up here, that's a significant failure, and that just breaks my heart. So that's not what I want for the future of this community. But it's not for me to say. I'm not, the determinant. So that's a community decision. That's why it's democracy. And so that's why it is a bit of a heavy lift. It's a big ask for this group to try to lift us up with the idea of how to go forward. Certainly, City Council's got, for lack of a better word, got your back on wanting to see this happen. I believe that, across the board, and the discussions I've been with them, and you can witness some of those yourself. If you go back and look at a couple of the council meetings, there's I think a deep feeling of wanting great goodness to come out of this process for the future of the community. And that's why we reached out and want you all to be a part of this. So I get some of the hesitancy that can be involved in this, but let's go after it and let's see where it takes us together as a team here. And I don't want you to be in any way fearful of an idea or in any way drag feet, because we might be concerned about, a silent majority that we may not be hearing from. But let's go draw them out. Let's get them silent majority talking to us, and let's figure out where everybody's at, and let's go from there. That's my pep talk, but it's from the heart, and I do mean it. And you're the right people to help us figure that out. So, and here's the thing. I'm gonna be honest broker here. I think I was honest with you all on the phone. We don't have the answers. I sure don't have the answer, and we don't have the answers. So if we had the answers, everybody would be, calling us wanting to know what the answer is. But we don't have it yet, right? So we may never have the exact answer, but we're going to have something that helps move the community forward. So.
Hey, Dan, I completely agree with you. There are definitely issues that we need to address, and we got to start from somewhere. Right now, I think tonight is a great start, and you and the Mayor Grooms work hard to identify the task force members, and so I do see that we have a very diverse body of voices, and I think it's a great start. And so one thing I want to share quickly is actually the work of your communication department, including Shirley tonight. She's here, and prior to her, Sarah and Sue. And they work with me and my fellow leaders with Ohio Chinese American Association and APAPA. We created a WeChat group. A lot of Chinese speaking people there on WeChat, which is a kind of combination of Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat. So a lot of people, like, we stay connected in the social media world in WeChat, and so people are deeply involved in different community events and talking to each other about like politics or kids and so forth. So it is very, very close knit, and I appreciate that Sue and Sarah started the initiative to set up a group. And what we did was we set up two groups. One is we call it key communicators. So we identify 13 people who are basically influencers. Right now is a buzzword, right, on social media. So people, they in one way or another, different capacity, they are influencers in their group, either dance or Chinese school or sports. So we identify these people, we set up a key communicators group. So I can see that the people have a lot of passion, feeling like, oh, they are part of a special group that have a way to communicate with the city. So they treasure that opportunity very much. In the meantime, we set up a larger group, which is more like a community group. Everybody in the city of Dublin is welcome to join. All the key communicators are there. So that way they know that there are some people who can connect with the city. If they have some voices, somebody is there to listen to them. So I think so far it's running well, and people think right now the larger group, we have about 350, 400 people. So, so because initially the group keep growing, so we put some like control limit on it. So people have to have like real name in it. You have to say which neighborhood you are from. We give priority to City of Dublin residents to join. So right now, people have a sense of belonging in the online world. So I think that is a way for us to be not necessarily ourselves. We represent our community. We think we are representing, right? We need to start from somewhere. So leveraging these two groups, we can get other voices to be heard as well. That way, when we make decisions or we discuss things, we know that there are different voices we need to consider.
And I think that ties back in very well to what you talked about before with, certainly the leveraging of technology, but to the networking and the networks that we all have. Denisha's comment about taking inventory of that. And we can reach out through these networks that everyone has. And so in a way, we're kind of going small group oriented, as we've talked about, but at the same time, it's a very big group, because when you add all those networks up, you're out there really to a lot of people. And Vincent, did I hear you right? Did you say a couple hundred people or more?
We got close to 300 to 400 people, all from.
Yeah, that's a significant way to Sylvina's point about getting to people through the way that they understand and hear, and be it by language or culture or whatever. So maybe that's that connectivity that we need through that. So anyway, I know it's getting kind of late, and you guys have great staying power, and I appreciate it. Thank you for staying on. I'm going to call an audible on our agenda here real quick, and I just want to ask Shirley. Shirley, have we had any public comment come in?
We have not received any public comment tonight.
Okay. I think as we get momentum, we'll have more and more people engage and watch and involve, and we will push harder and harder about your meetings. We did advertise this meeting and let everyone know, but we certainly wanted this one to be your time and organizational as an inaugural meeting. So with that, I don't want to cut anything off by any stretch. So if there's any other comments, feel free to bring them forward. I did want to touch a little bit on goals and outcomes. I don't know if that's easy or hard to get to at this point based on the discussion so far, but I do know, Stephen, you raised that one, and that's certainly one back to sort of the data-driven perspective of that, as well as making sure that we have action items that we want to pursue, measurable outcomes and results. Anything you want to add to that with some of your thoughts?
Yeah. So thanks, Dana. And I want to just echo something you said earlier, just to, I am optimistic. I mean, this is obviously, these are very difficult issues, but we're having the difficult conversation, and because we're trying to make our city an even better place, particularly for our youth for the future. So I think these conversations are a good conversation to have. And that's why I'm optimistic about, where we're going as a task force for the future. And from the goals and outcome, the email I sent out earlier was, perhaps at the end of this, a year from now, when we wrap up, we have a series of not only high level strategies as an outcome of this task force, these would be strategies that we would share back to you, Dana, and back to City Council. And then underneath those strategies are perhaps some recommendations relating to the data that we've been able to collect, and coming up with recommendations on how to move the dial, if you will, as it relates to some of those data points, and how we can measure that moving forward. So kind of what I was envisioning is, we have these sort of series of high-level strategies that would, and then under each strategy would be a series of recommendations based off of the data that we've accumulated throughout the year. And then underneath that are particular measurements that we as a city can say, okay, are we progressing? Are we advancing those strategies moving forward a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that we could use based off of that benchmark? So that's kind of what I was thinking as I was sort of putting that email together, for potential outcomes that this group could come together around.
Any thoughts on that? Okay, I do think at the end of the day, council's looking for that kind of very thing. And, the idea of the task force structure is to try to push the idea of getting a strategy, certain, not certain, but strategies that you feel appropriate, recommendations and the like, and to be able to measure those and take action is a good thing. So part of that, getting to that point, obviously, is going to be learning and growing and understanding. I think as Erica put it, as the old Stephen Covey thing goes first, right? Seek to understand and to be understood is the other part of that. But we want to understand first and then try to go from there. So let's work to that end. So that's great. And I appreciate, Stephen, that you raised that, because that's definitely a point that we want to be able to report out on. So, okay. Let me, so we did the public comment. Chair and vice chair, just let me point out that, I want this, and council wants this to be your task force. This is to be self-directed, self-driven, kind of within the context of the resolution, but also want you to understand something very clearly, that while the resolution has some suggestions of need, it's not the only guardrails. So, you can certainly suggest changes along the way. If there's things we venture into that you want to explore or do, know that the city supports that. We're here to support you. If there are resources and things that you need or feel you need, if you want guest speaker, you want, information, you want expertise, you want facilitator, you want any of that sort of thing to help in this process, don't hesitate to ask, suggest, recommend, whatever. We'll make it happen. We will support you in your effort. I also encourage you all to, and I know you'll do this because you're off the charts brilliant. You will certainly feel free to research and explore individually as well, and bring those things forward. If you see examples of what other communities are doing or businesses doing, or your own experiences or school systems or what have you, that serve as good models as well, please feel free to advance those as to the group as well. I'm a big believer that, I like to innovate and create and kind of be the first in on a lot of things, but I'm also, no, I don't have all the answers. I'm the first one to go borrow somebody else's idea if I can find it, if it helps me get to where I think we need to get to faster. So there's no shame in that whatsoever. Please do it. The other thing is the chair and vice chair positions, because this is intended to be a task force driving itself. My job, Deviani JM's job, is to participate, but also to support. And so the chair, vice chair positions are defined. The chair will really help to set and drive the agenda, and then to run the meeting. And then the vice chair sits in that role, and the chair is not available. So if you have an interest in being chair, feel free to talk among yourselves, email each other. I hope that you will find this as an opportunity to get to know each other and that you'll cross communicate with each other. That's encouraged, in between meetings, and collaborate with each other to the extent that you feel you'd like to do that. If you're interested in that chair, vice chair role, certainly express that to your peers here. The goal would be to, by our third meeting, try to figure out who would be in those roles. And again, that's really a position to do kind of what I've been doing tonight, to move the meeting along and to work with staff in formation of the agenda and so forth. This is a public meeting. It's a public process. So we want to make sure we're doing things that are, in keeping with statutory requirements and legal requirements around public meetings. So all those kind of things. It feels a little bit formal, but that's okay. We can do a lot of innovation and creativity within that framework. So it's not meant to be in any way squelching of the creativity that you all want to undertake. So just keep that in mind. I think next steps, I think I tried to summarize a little bit as we went along. This was an incredible conversation and dialogue. My mind is like, I probably won't sleep half the night because I'll sit here and think through things. But we've taken a lot of notes. Anne, of course, is taking minutes of the meeting, which they will translate and be available going forward for your reference, future reference. And council will monitor those as well, either by perhaps watching this on occasion, or we'll be able to go back to it and see it, or they'll read the minutes as well as we go along, and we provide that to them as well. So, so we will take a look at that, thinking about next steps. So I think, I will, between J.M. Deviani and I, we will certainly take back what we've heard here tonight. We'll synthesize that a bit, perhaps advance back to you, again, some agenda items, and maybe under the agenda, take a look at some more specific conversation that we might want to spend a little bit more time on, to spend a little time. I think we spend a little bit more time up front planning the way ahead. We'll go a little bit slow to go fast, if that makes sense. So I'd like to think about some of the technology things, some of the networking things, and so forth. The meeting does not stop here. Please engage with us, send us emails. You've got everyone else's email. You've got the group email. Or if you need any of that, feel free to reach out to myself or Candy in my office. We'll make sure you have all that. Let's not let the juices stop flowing in these meetings. Let's keep thinking. Sometimes the best thinking comes after the meeting. And so, just dwell on it a little bit. I hope you lose a little bit of sleep thinking about it, but not a lot. And just share back, those thoughts that you might have. That helps tee up the next meeting and helps to make it productive. So please send us any other ideas. And what we'll do is work with you to get information out in advance so that you can look at that and say, okay, I think this is kind of capturing where we're headed, and, let's go from there. But I would like to open up for just a couple minutes here, any specific next steps that you all would like to undertake, and make sure that we don't miss as a result of the conversation.
When it comes, go ahead. Go ahead. No, you can go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it'd be good for us to find some sort of method of shared communication, Dana, to your point, to make sure we don't get lost back and forth with emails. I know being within tech, we use Slack a lot. I'm not sure what other people are familiar with or what's most convenient. I like it because it's on my desktop. If I'm at work, I can just glance over and respond quickly, but not sure what other people might be using or what might be the best option for that.
Yeah, my statement was going to be about the best form of communication for everybody if they just want to do email or if they wanted to do something else. When it comes to the chair and the vice chair as well, Dana, would it be easier just to do a Google survey and then people just vote on whoever they want? That's something I thought was easy.
That's a great idea. We can do that as well. Why don't we give it another meeting to do that, and then we can go from there. I think too, if people want to express their interest, I guess is what you're suggesting. If people want to express an interest in that role, then we can put that out there, if you will, for or and survey that. Some of this, it sounds old school, and it is some of the public meeting type stuff we have to keep in the public versus what we do offline. So just for that awareness, but we'll pull every lever we can to be innovative and leverage technology whenever we can. So,
Dana, to that point, are we? I love the Slack idea. Are we prohibited from? I'm not familiar with the city ordinance as a task force. From a communication standpoint, can we set up a system of communication without public hearing, without public triggering certain public requirements? How's that work?
I believe we can. We just got to be a little bit careful about the public meeting process, and really the public meeting, as long as we're not taking votes and making decisions outside of the public realm, which we would not do, but there's nothing wrong with sharing information and pushing information. And then we'll make sure as staff that kind of information gets into the public realm so that it is available and people have access, because really anything that you're pushing out now among yourselves is subject to public record. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. In fact, I may have at the next meeting our city attorney just speak to you a little bit about that. I don't do that to scare you. It's, I really want your thoughts and creativity to be free flowing, but being in the public realm, there are ways we have to be very careful, not very careful, but careful about. I don't mean to scare you again, but just make sure that we're, keeping things in the public realm. So that's easy enough. I think we can do that. And we believe me, about leveraging technology, as you all suggest, to try to make sure that we're doing everything we can, even outside the meetings, to try to keep moving things forward. So I will worry about making sure it's in the public realm. I want you all communicating and being active and involved. And I want to make that as simple and as supportive to you as I can possibly make it. So great ideas. Great ideas. Okay, so next steps, I heard about the communication piece. I think that one thing that keeps coming to my mind is that networking inventory. I think Denisha, you mentioned that. I'd love to, what do you all think about trying to submit networks that you think, because going back to this, I get the thumbs up from JM. I think that's going to, and just listening to, the outreach piece of this and the engagement piece of that, and the desire to maybe start in smaller groups and then grow to larger groups, it seems to me like those networks could be a really critical piece for us to be able to leverage. I don't know how you all feel about advancing those for us to be aware of, knowing that those all then become public realm at some point. I doubt there's an issue with that, but there could be in some cases. So, Steve, you were going to chime in on that, Stephen?
Yeah, I think I love the idea of us pulling together. Maybe we send an organization that we think is an organization that we would love to involve, and then also Dr. Hoadley's comment around the top 30. I think he called them influencers. Are there particular names of people in the community that we ought to be thinking about engaging? So we kind of hit it sort of on the organization side, and then on the leader side, that we would want to send a survey to or engage in some manner moving forward. I think if we all kind of send names in, we could generate those two lists that we could revisit at the next meeting.
Kofi, your idea of a Google form, that might be an easy way to do something like that. Gather that information in one place.
JM, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it lends a lot of authenticity to what the city's trying to do here by including other organizations and using us as representatives. So I think it's a great idea, Denisha. I think that could really help maximize what we're trying to achieve here by having not only city partnerships, but regional partnerships.
And also, what about the methods? She mentioned the Google Docs. So maybe we can talk about that as staff and get back based on these ideas and talk about some of those best formats to use to gather that up.
The other thing, Dana, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say we use Microsoft products at the city. So Teams is the communication method that we use with within, so we can share that. We can also create the Microsoft document that we can share and you can then include all your thoughts in that document. So we have various ways we can engage with all of you.
Yeah, sorry, Dana, for misunderstanding your question.
Oh, no. Both those responses were just fine. We didn't misunderstand anything. That's good.
I'm not sure when we're meeting next. Is there a cadence? I apologize if I missed that. Is it a monthly
Actually, that is the next item. Let's just go on to that then. And so what I wanted to kind of get, and again, that where doing some sort of polling might work best to try to figure out what that cadence or rhythm would be, what evenings seem to work best. And again, someone mentioned even other times of the day. So, I want to be sensitive to all of your requirements and when most people can be available to have these meetings. Now, understand this too. Last time I checked, this is a volunteer effort. So, there's no clock punching here to be at this meeting. So my point being, we'd love to have you here as much as you can be here. We also understand life happens and, missing a meeting, can happen and we understand that. So we just will take any and all of your time that we can get. So, but I do need to try to, and maybe even we mix up times that will work best for everybody. So perhaps sticking a poll out there, if you will, of people and try to figure out what works best from that perspective might be the way to go. I don't know how you feel about that. I could sit here and ask each of you which night of the week works best for you, but I don't know that I'll still be able to figure that out from that process. So does that make sense? Let me ask you this though. So frequency in terms of, monthly, every couple weeks, what are your initial thoughts after sitting with Dana here this evening? Hopefully you're going to come back. Hopefully that's going to work. But
I think once a month or once every other month works well. My only thing is I wouldn't want to do something like four meetings a year or like the quarterly a year, just because it's so spaced out, we might lose momentum or people just might forget. So either once a month or once every other month will keep people's minds fresh and, not keep us, too stressed on this or whatever.
Yeah.
At least initially, I would like to go once a month. I think giving it any more time than that will lead to the loss of momentum that Kofi just talked about. And I think we'll figure out what the workload might be, how much time it may take, perhaps outside of that. And we can gauge based on that.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Once a month, I think makes sense, at least initially. And then, if we get into the spring and it's, we're humming and we can kind of readjust as needed. But one of the things I might recommend, Dana, is that for our next meeting, just to kind of keep, I think one of the action items coming out of this is this idea of, pulling together groups of focus groups and a survey of some kind. Perhaps if the staff could put together a draft of what the survey might look like to give us a starting place for our next meeting. So that way, coming out of that next meeting in a month from now, we'll have enough to be able to fine tune it a little bit more so we can get that survey out relatively quickly, because it's going to help drive our conversations and our dialogues.
everyone seemed to be in agreement on that. Does that seem like a reasonable approach to do this monthly looking good? I got some thumbs up going. Everybody okay with that? Okay. And our commitment is we work these issues in between the meetings, and there is communication in between the meetings with you. So that gives us some time to prepare and set up for the next one. So yeah, I agree with you, Stephen. I think it's clear that trying to figure out the groups to reach out to and how to reach out to them, be it survey or what have you, is definitely seems to be what's percolated to the top here. So we will go back as staff and huddle on that and come back with some ideas on that and see if we can't hit the ground running with that. Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the group? Anything I just completely missed the boat on that we should have covered tonight? Okay.
Dana, I do have one question. I'm wondering, I'll ask it now, but maybe this is, you can address how we should request for some information from the city. I read the memo that you guys provided and that was very helpful, but I feel like it would be useful to know a little bit more about sort of the diversity of income here in the city, and maybe even a closer look at housing stock, rental versus ownership. And I don't know if that can be broken down by income and or race, but I think that could be valuable. And then since I'm making this request, how do you guys want requests from task force members in the future? Through email?
Yeah, I would ask that you just do a group email out, and we'll grab that as staff, and then we'll action it and respond and make sure you know we got it. And the reason I suggest a group email, and you don't have to do it that way. If you want to do it individually, to me is fine, and I'll make sure that the staff gets it. But I think the power of copying everyone in is everyone's kind of seeing what everyone else might be asking. And so that could be helpful. I don't know if you all feel that way or not, but I don't want to require everyone to do it that way. It's whatever you're comfortable with. And so, but if you do want to share that with the other task force members, that would be great. Just go ahead and grab one of those group emails and send it out to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
And as I said, I want you to keep thinking, and if you have ideas, suggestions, thoughts, questions, information you need, got things you want us to benchmark off of, I appreciate everyone contributing to the research side of this and helping us out. I think would be really helpful. And I know you've got those other day jobs that you do. But anytime you can give us in between meetings like that's greatly appreciated. And so not a requirement, but we'll take it, anything and everything we can get. So, okay, great question.
I just wanted to add to that I appreciate all the help that Dublin City has done for the parents in the community with this COVID-19. All the parents that lost their jobs and they needed assistance for housing and renting. When we requested your assistance, they were helped. So I know that the city does a great help with assisting the community. So I think having that communication would be helpful for all the task members to know, because I know that they have help already. So it's good information. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We appreciate it. Okay. I tell you what, it's going to be an awesome journey together. You folks are great. Thank you so much again on behalf of the city. We'll look forward to continuing to work together. And I know it's really late and I held you way over, but thank you all very much. And we'll talk to you real soon. Okay. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.